So over the last few topics, we've actually covered quite a bit. You'll recall I started talking about our mental filters and lenses that sit within the subconscious and how they process the experiences from the environment will determine our long-term well-being, and they do this through our emotions. Now, we will be doing more work with our mental filters and lenses, but for now it's about these emotions that they impact on, because these emotions are drivers behind our behavior, and again, that behavior may not be conducive to a long-term well-being. So I've been talking about awareness, that little awareness that is required to work with our well-being. And in this topic, we're going to start developing our awareness skills. So I'll be providing you with some tools to help you move away from emotional rigidity, because we can sometimes go there, move towards emotional agility, and we'll be working with labeling and observing or becoming the witness around our emotions to help us do so. Firstly, let's have a look at emotional rigidity and why it's potentially destructive. Well, this is where we ignore our emotions. We think it doesn't matter, or it's too uncomfortable to pay attention to our emotions, particularly the painful ones. And there's also this attitude maybe that emotions are either good or bad, and we want to be seen as this happy-go-lucky person out there. So what we can do is we might start developing this false sense of positivity when we go out there and we're with people and we pretend we're all happy and joyful. Meanwhile, deep down, we're just feeling unhappy. And I feel this is when people say, "How are you doing?" We say, "I'm fine." And I think "I'm fine" is so overused that it's probably an acronym for what I'm really feeling is financially insecure, neurotic, and emotional. But I'm not suggesting now that you go out there and tell everyone your emotional states, because that can also be disrespected. It's like putting them up on social media. That's not emotional agility. What is important, it's about becoming honest to yourself about your emotional state. And that's a great starting point to work from. You see, what happens is when we shove our negative emotions under the carpet, like we would dirt, we can keep on going in the short run because it's easy. But like dirt, if you keep putting that dirt under the carpet, what happens is it becomes a mound and we trip over the mound. And it's the same with shoving our emotions in the back. They will demand expression, and eventually they will explode like a volcano. And this could really have a detrimental effect in terms of our behavior and our well-being in general. So let's have a look at emotional agility. What is emotional agility all about? Well, you might have guessed that this is where we stop ignoring our emotions and we start by becoming present to the moment. This is the first step, to become present to the moment. And in this present moment, we then secondly pay purposeful attention to these emotions and their urges on our behavior. And as we do so, we then thirdly suspend our judgment by being as objective as possible. They are not good or bad, they are simply emotions. Now this is difficult because it requires that we begin to allow ourselves to feel the discomfort of these painful emotions, which our subconscious, you'll recall, doesn't like. Our ego and our subconscious doesn't like this. But as we do so, as we start accepting the pain into our life alongside the pleasure, the first thing is we start to accept our human experience and we react less to these painful experiences, taking on unhealthy behaviors to numb the pain. Now, when it comes to developing our emotional agility, where's the first place to begin? Well, this is where, with awareness, we do our emotional check-ins. It can be at any time in the day. You either might be going into a meeting, or you might be on your own, or you might have a crucial conversation with someone. But you check in on your emotions and you label them. You give them a specific name. And this is a really powerful gesture, even though it sounds very simple. Because as we do so, we are starting to take accountability for our own emotions. And we also start to develop emotional clarity, giving us a deeper understanding of what is happening. Consequently, our emotions have less power over us and our reactive behavior around them. And then we're in a better position to become more curious about them and to ask ourselves, what are these emotions telling me? They're always communicating something. Maybe it's something we either require to address within ourselves or maybe to address with someone else. But either way, we are not reacting on them, but we are responding to them. We can also ask ourselves other questions such as, what can I do differently instead of reacting to these emotions? Or how can I do something about what I'm feeling right now? And what this does do is this curiosity helps prevent us from going into this downward spiral. Now, it is important to be as specific as possible for our emotional clarity, and this is why we have provided you with Robert Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions. Now, as we look at the wheel, you'll see that towards the center, these are the more intense emotions. And as you work outwards, they become less intense. So there's a greater risk of us reacting on our emotions as we work with the ones within the circle. And what they've also done is they've placed the emotions opposite each other in terms of the physiological response they produce. So for example, with rage, we might just charge at someone, whereas with terror, we will run away. Now, alongside the wheel, you can also work with the observer, and this is a powerful tool. Another name for it is the witness. So as you work with labeling your emotions, you start to witness them, and this requires that you take on the 3 pillars of awareness, namely to become present to the moment, to what is happening in the moment, and then to purposefully pay attention to it. And then the third one is to suspend your judgments around it, to be as objective as possible. Now let's have a look at the first position, because there's a number of them you can take on. The first one is called the associated position, and this is where you label and fully experience the emotion and its sensations, even the painful ones. This is where we practice learning to become more comfortable with the discomfort. And as we use this position, we then become curious and we can start learning way more about what our emotions are telling us. Now, the second position, this is where you observe your emotional state and behavior from the perspective of the people you're with, whether they're work colleagues or whether it's your family. But what you do is you imagine you're in their shoes and you observe how they are experiencing you in your current state of emotion. And I feel this is a really powerful position for that reason, because it helps me understand how I impact on others around me when I'm not working with my emotions. Now there's the third position. This is the disassociated position. This is where you observe yourself and your emotional state as if you were a lead character in a movie. And you can also imagine maybe you're a video camera mounted on the wall, but you're taking a distant perspective. And what it does do is it reduces the intensity of those really painful emotions. So when you're working with that wheel and you're working with emotions that are within the center circle, this position allows you to kind of step back, to detach. And detachment is not about saying I don't care. It's about reducing the power or the urge that those emotions have over our reactive nature. And then you get the fourth position. This is the overview effect. This provides us with a global perspective of what we are feeling. So often we can feel shame because we think we're the only ones who feel certain emotions or fears. But then as we step into this global perspective, we remind ourselves that we are not alone, that other people also have the same emotions and the same fears. And what this does do is this destigmatizes the feeling. Now you'll notice there's workbook 1 that you can download. You are given a 10-day challenge where you are challenged to become the observer, to label your emotions, to do those emotional check-ins, and as you label them, to notice their urges, their hooks. And yes, tick off each day that you finish off an emotional check-in, because remember, awareness is not something that happens out of habit. We've got to consciously remind ourselves to do it. And as you tick it off each day, you kind of pat yourself on the back and it energizes you to keep on going. Now, as we leave this topic, I leave you with a wonderful quote. Emotional self-awareness is the building block of the next fundamental emotional intelligence, being able to shake off a bad mood. Now, I will see you in the next module where we're going to continue building on what we've learned so far. And until then, take care and stay aware.